ranking every Badgers basketball player for next year's team in order of importance. Who's number one? Who's number two? Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what is up, Badger fans? I am Ryan Herrings, your host of Locked On Badgers. Fun show today. I really appreciate everyone tuning in, making Locked On Badgers your first listen, one of your first listens every single day as we continue to build this Badger community. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. And we're going to do some basketball. We haven't done basketball in a minute because we've had a lot of kind of football stuff. The conference expansion has happened. We've talked about that. There's been some recruiting news, but we're going to get into some basketball. We're going to talk about ranking every contributing player, every player that might have a contributing impact on next year's team from 12 to 1 in order of importance. Now, it's very important on this list because I went back and forth. So you could rank this in terms of who are the best players, who are the best talents, or who is just most important for next year's team. So this list, 12 players, and it's all in order of importance. Basically, there's players that I have ranked higher than other players who I don't think they're as good, but they're just more important to next year's team due to depth, due to role they need to play, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to jump right into it. There are a couple players not in this list because they're walk-ons that just joined the program. And there's no way feasibly that they're going to have a role. So I tried to only limit this to players that might have a role in next year's team. We're going to start at 12. And again, I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to dog anybody. Starting at 12 may seem like I'm dogging on somebody if I have them at 11, 12. It is what it is, right? This is just my opinion. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. Leave a comment. I'm always here for the Discord. I'm always trying to keep it real. So starting at 12, I have Carter Gilmore, in-state kid out of Heartland, Wisconsin, 6'7", 6'8". And in his best form, Gilmore really is kind of a glue player, a type of a guy who can move the ball, make some intangible plays, get a tip, get a couple rebounds, space the floor, hit a shot. The problem is he never hit a shot last year, right? And I think he can. I think he can shoot, but he was 1 of 13 from 3 last year. He didn't even shoot that well from the free throw line, even though he didn't get there a lot. And for a guy like Gilmore, whose play, he played more at the beginning of the season, and then when I think guard and the coaching staff really saw that he just wasn't able to shoot and space the floor, his playing time really tapered off, as well it should have, because he struggles defensively. He's not going to give you much on offense. And if he can't hit open shots, he can't be on the court. So until that happens, I just don't think there's much of a role there. I'm sure he's a good kid. I think he's probably a really good practice player. And I think he's smart. I think the coaches trust him. That's why he was out there. They trust him to run the system, to make the right play. But at some point, if you're a 6'7", 6'8" wing, you got to bang threes. So I have Carter Gilmore at 12. Going on to 11, I have Conor Sigian, the true freshman. Really good shooter. I actually wanted to put Essegien higher because, and this is going to be a constant theme in this show, we're going to talk about shooting and the Badgers' complete lack of it last season, how poorly they shot, and how they really need to find shooting for this year's team, to space it for Tyler Wahl, to give Chucky Hepburn some pick and roll spacing as he comes off that. He can find Crowl or Wahl rolling and find a shooter in the corner. So Essegien, who is a great high school shooter, tremendous stroke, quick release, can shoot off the move, can shoot off coming off screens, pin downs, can take a step back and really hit tough shots. I wanted to put him higher, but I just don't have a ton of faith in a freshman being able to come in, especially kind of a skinnier guy. He needs to put on weight. Defensively, guard isn't going to play you if you're not ready physically to stand up against the guards in the Big Ten. So even though he's a really good shooter, I think in a couple of years, he's going to be a really, really important player for the Badgers. I doubt it's next year. I have him at 11. At 10, I have Isaac Lindsey. And Lindsey's a guy, listen, I'm not expecting him to be a big-time player next year. I will say, if there's a player kind of in this lower group that if you want to bet on an underdog to make some noise to outplay expectations, Lindsey's that guy for me. 6'4" guard out of Mineral Point, Wisconsin, took a scholarship offer from UNLV out of high school, got injured, missed a year, came back to Wisconsin, and really was just shaking off for us, getting his feet underneath him last year, but he can shoot. I like the build. He's physical. He's got a really nice release. And I just judging from the little bit of time he was in there last year, coming into March Madness, into a tournament game with late in the game and just firing up a three right away, I think he's got a shooter's mentality. So it won't stun me if he finds a role. And that's all I'm talking about. Let's manage expectations. I'm not expecting him to come in and be, a volume shooter getting 25 minutes a game. But it wouldn't stun me if Lindsey carved out a role 8 to 12 minutes a game, hitting a couple shots, spacing the floor a little bit while he's out there. So I have Lindsey at 10. And at 9, I have Markus Illver. And this man is just a question mark. Illver is, when you watched his high school film, and really good friend of the show, Justin Jolka, was on a while ago talking about Illver. It's just a guy that the film, Jolka compared him to, an NBA prospect. He's bouncy, he's athletic, he's 6'8", he's got a good shot, he's got good form. This is a dude who really, I was stunned he couldn't get more burn last year with all the depth issues Wisconsin had, with the injuries, with really having to ride the starters so hard. The fact that Illver couldn't crack that rotation for 15 minutes a game, 10 minutes a game as a 6'8" kid with physical athletic tools, it's worrisome. Like it's a bit of a red flag. Now the light doesn't come on at the same point for everybody, so it's far too early to really cast any aspersions on Ilver's game, but it still surprises me that he wasn't able to find the rotation last year, and it makes you wonder what he had to clean up and if he's going to be able to clean that up for this season. So that's why I have him at 9. I think athletically, the tools, the size, the shooting ability, the bounce, he could be a dude that really should be much higher on this list. And I hope he comes out and he kind of breaks out this year and becomes maybe that 6th or 7th man off the bench. It would be a great development for Wisconsin, especially a Wisconsin team that's a little thin in the front court. So I have Illver at 9. That's my first kind of group. So I have Carter Gilmore at 12, Lindsey at 11, Essegien at 11, Lindsey at 10, Illver at 9. This group, it wouldn't stun me if any of these players, Gilmore included, because he was in the rotation early last year. It wouldn't stun me if any of these players carved out a bench role this year, like a 15-minute role, 10-minute role. They're certainly not all going to do it. Wisconsin needs depth to really come to play this year. That depth was a major issue last year. So getting any one of these players to kind of be able to be a valuable bench piece, a guy that guard can go to for 8 minutes, 6 minutes in a game, it really would matter. It would make a big difference. Out of that group, Lindsey would be my pick. I think he knows how to play ball. He was a mid-major scholarship athlete coming out of high school, good size, good shooter. Again, a program who needs shooting. You're going to hear that drum repeated several times throughout this show. So I think it might be Lindsey out of this group. We're going to move on to the next segment, including really our first transfer in the offseason, someone who I think is going to play a big role this year. So stick around for that. First, today's show is brought to you by Rock Auto. Rock Auto is the number one way in 2022 to buy any type of auto part, car part, truck part, especially with the ever-increasing number of makes and models. It's impossible for your local shop to have everything that you need. They can't do it. And you're going to go there, you're going to waste time, you're going to talk to somebody who doesn't really care, and they're going to charge you 30, 50 to 100% more. Why do that? Save the time. Go just online. The website's easy to use. There's drop-down menus. I've done it with my Jeep. It's incredibly simple, intuitive to use. You're going to be working with a family business that's been doing it 20 years in Rock Auto. You're going to get it cheaper and save time. It's win-win. Great for DIYers. They ship it to your house. There's nothing better than this, I promise you. Go explore the easy-to-use website. Find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Thank you again, everybody, for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. We just continue to try to build this community, continue to give everybody listening all the best content I can possibly find, try to find new guests. We have a bunch more guests coming up, some stuff you're really going to enjoy, so I really appreciate it. Can't stress that enough. And when you're done here, go check out, coming up on July 18th, Locked On gives you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. That's available July 18th on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcasts. So we're going to jump into the second tier. We're just going to keep this show rolling. And again, we're going from 12 to 1, the order of importance for next year's team. So this is not again, I'm going to stress it, this is not necessarily the order in which I think these are the most talented players. It's not the most important players over the next 2 or 3 years. It is just straight for next year. So we're going to get into it. At number 8, I have Jordan Davis. So Johnny's brother, obviously, Jordan Davis coming in. And, he's a player who, on the recruiting trail, he was really billed as a defensive guy, athletic, a dog, someone who's going to maybe not provide a lot of offense, maybe not provide a lot of shooting, but a player who's going to get after you. And I kind of wonder, if we didn't, it's interesting to me because I kind of wonder if playing with Johnny Davis as Johnny Davis was exploding at Wisconsin hurt Jordan Davis a little bit living in that shadow. And I'm interested to see how he does this year because he did not shoot well last year. And if you're going to be a 6'4" wing in the Big Ten, which Johnny Davis is, he's 6'4", 6'5", 200 pounds. He's built solidly. He's a good athlete, not a great athlete, but he's a good athlete. If you're going to be that, you have to shoot, or you have to be exemplary at getting to the rim, post. You have to have some type of innate skill that very few players have if you really can't shoot. So I just don't know if we saw the ability to shoot. I mean, he's a really important player. The Badgers need wing depth. They need shooters. I have him at 8. So definitely in that top 8. When you talk about rotations, Greg Gard is going to try to go about 8 deep. So he's definitely firmly going to be in that rotational group. He just needs to shoot it better. I'm not sure if we've seen enough offensive skill from him, enough ability to get the ball in the bucket to put him much higher on this list. But he's young. He's got development. And I think at a minimum, he's going to be a solid defensive wing, someone who you can match up on 1s, 2s, even some 3s. He's athletic. He is strong. He's well built. So I have him at 8. At 7, I have Jacoby Neath. Now, Neath is a guy really important to this team. Now, he came over Wake Forest. Last year was his first year at Wisconsin. We never saw really what he was because he had injuries the entire year. They just plagued him, and he's a player who's athletic. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's an athlete, probably one of the better athletes on the team. He's strong and athletic enough. He reminds me a tiny bit of Khalil Iverson. Neath does in the sense that, Khalil Iverson was a better athlete than Neath, but in the sense that Khalil Iverson, could really make some things happen as an athlete. He could do some things that the other players just couldn't do from an athletic sense. And Neath gives the Badgers that. He gives them some athletic X factor to match up with Michigan State, some athletic X factor to match up against some of the bouncy players, some of the bouncy guards in the Big Ten. But he needs to stay healthy. He needs to shoot it better. I don't think the decision-making was great from him. But he is a player who's now a senior, and he's had 3 seasons of Power 5 basketball, 2 at Wake Forest, 1 with the Badgers. And he's a player who his freshman year at Wake Forest, not in a ton of attempts, but he shot the 3 really well. So I think he's a really important player. I've got him at 7. Definitely a rotation player. Definitely a guy whose defensively his versatility is going to really matter for the Badgers, but his offense has to tick up. And again, constant theme in the show, right? He has to be able to shoot better. So coming in at, I'm at 6. I've got Kamari Mcgee. We talked about, I teased it, the transfer coming in. Mcgee is a really important player on this team next year. Like I said, I have him at 6. He started 20 games last year for Green Bay, 4 games of 20-plus points, really quick, 11.6 points per game, really young player, still coming into his own. And I know Badger fans have this idea that, Mcgee is going to be blocked by Chucky Hepburn, so his minutes are going to be limited. His impact's going to be limited. Some of that's true. Like, I don't think they're going to play together a ton, but Hepburn doesn't play 40 minutes. You have the ability now with Mcgee. You have 2 playmakers now, and you can stagger them, right? So Mcgee, let's say Hepburn plays 32 minutes, right? So that's 8 minutes where Mcgee is going to come in and be the primary ball handler. But I think you're going to also get another 10 minutes-ish where Mcgee and Hepburn are going to share the court because Hepburn's strong enough to handle a physical 2 guard, right? So you can have a lineup with 2 playmakers. I don't think that's never going to happen for the Badgers. And Mcgee also brings something to this Badgers basketball team that we don't have, right? It's that, it's that quick, disruptive player that can stick with a jitterbug, that can kind of get in the paint, that can really jumpstart some stuff with a quickness that you need at certain points in the game, right? To get a fast break going, to get a hand in a passing lane, to guard somebody who's getting penetration. I think Mcgee was a really sneaky good pickup this offseason. Probably didn't get enough publicity. And a guy who's going to be in the program for several years. He's going to be paired with Chucky Hepburn for several years. Good shooter, fast, athletic, not big. He's going to struggle defensively against bigger guards. But again, you're not going to ask him to guard a 6'5" guard, right? So I think Mcgee at 6 makes sense. I think he's going to have an enormous role just coming off the bench next year, providing scoring, like a bit of like a spark score coming off the bench as a 6-man, jump-starting the offense, getting some things going, getting to the rim. And defensively, I think he gives the Badgers something they don't have. At 5, now this is where it kind of gets into, you can see a difference between importance probably and who I think the best players are. At 5, I have Chris Hodges. Right. And I don't think Hodges is a better player than Jordan Davis. I don't think he's a better player than Jahcobi Neath. I don't think he's a better player than Kamari Mcgee. If I was doing this list just on players who I think are going to have the best statistical season or who are surefire bets to really perform over the next couple of years, Hodges would be much lower. But the problem is there's just no post depth on this team. It makes Hodges, unless the Badgers can, it's not impossible that the Badgers could still land another post player in the transfer market. I'm sure they're still looking, but until that happens, Hodges is your backup 5, right? With Chris Vogt moving on, you have Stephen Crowl, who we haven't got to yet, and you have Chris Hodges, right? When you're going up against some of the bigger front lines in the Big Ten, that's your depth chart, and Tyler Wahl can play in a super small lineup. Tyler Wahl can play some of the 5. I mean, this is again where we talked about Markus Illver. If he can make a big jump, kind of a 6'8" athletic guy, could be a 4 maybe, but there's just not much post depth here. There wasn't a ton last year, to be honest, but at least Vogt, with Chris Vogt coming off the bench, you had a legit seasoned 7-footer coming off the bench that you felt really good about if Crowl had foul trouble or if he got hurt. You could rely on Vogt to come in for 20 minutes and bang with somebody. On this roster, there's not that. And I think if the Badgers don't land a post player this offseason, it's going to be kind of a miss for Greg Gard and the staff because they really needed one. But all of that being said, it makes Chris Hodges' role much more important. He's a sophomore, 6'9", 6'10", long wingspan, about 230 pounds. He's the depth. We don't really know much about him at the college level. There was in high schools, the ability to score, the ability to rebound, not a great athlete, but good enough. He's definitely going to be relied on not to score a lot. The Badgers aren't going to be asking Chris Hodges to score a ton, but they are going to need him unless, again, somebody else walks through that door. They're going to need Hodges to come in and play 15, 20 minutes at times. There's going to be a game where Stephen Crowl gets in foul trouble. God forbid, but there's probably going to be potentially be a game where he gets hurt. And Hodges is going to have to be able to step in and not win the battle against the opposing center, but not get blown off the court. He can't get run off the court because then the Badgers really don't have another answer. So I'm fascinated to see what Hodges does. It's possible that he part of the reason Greg Gard hasn't brought in another post player is because they feel confident in Hodges being that backup 5. That's certainly possible. I think more likely is they had a hard time finding that role, and now they're going to pivot to doing the best they can with Hodges. So that's kind of my next tier. So we had the first tier. This tier, it goes Jordan Davis, Jahcobi Neath, Kamari Mcgee, and Chris Hodges. So that's 8, 7, 6, 5. In this group, this is probably the top 8 with the next group coming up. It's tough. This is a tough one because there really does, when you look at the roster and you go through it, there really is a pretty glaring hole at that backup 5 position. So we're gonna come up. We're gonna do the top 4. Let me know who you think. Again, if you agree, disagree. If you think I'm way too high on Chris Hodges, let me know. Coming up, who's number 1? Who's number 2? Who's number 3? Who's number 4? We're gonna get into that next. But first, today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar. Again, I've had 2 of them today. I have the churro. It is the number 1 protein bar on the market. It tastes delicious. It tastes like a candy bar. It's the flavors are ridiculous. Everything's 100% pure chocolate. They found a way to make something taste good that also fuels your body, gives your muscles what they need. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bar with this, and you're going to feel good about it after. You're going to enjoy eating it and feel good about it after. My kids love them. And the website's easy to use. You can scroll down. They have little macro charts for everything, so you know exactly what you're putting into your body. Again, there's going to be 17 plus grams of protein in each one of these bad boys. Get it for you. It's a great nutritional sidekick as we're all trying to eat a little better. We're all trying to be a little healthier. This is an easy way to do it. We all need to eat. We all need to fuel up. Let's do it in a smart and delicious way. So go to website today at Built Bar. They are all about the taste. They found a way to make it delicious. I get it all the time. I have the reoccurring buy. Go to built.com, promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, and you get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off built.com. And I want to thank everyone again for tuning into the show. Let me know if you think I'm off on any of these players. Give me your list. Who's your top 3? Who's your top 12? Who's your top whatever? Let me know if I'm too high on somebody, too low on somebody. We're just going to continue the discussion. That's what we're here for. So into the first tier, we're going to talk about another transfer, the second big transfer they got, Max Klezman. I got him at 4. I think I was off on my numbers on previous lists. So Chucky Hodges was actually 5. Chris Hodges, sorry, was actually 5. So Max Klezman at 4. And Klezman's the Wofford transfer, 6'4", former Wisconsin kid as well, former Wisconsin high school kid. 6'3" guard, so not a real big guard, not super bouncy. Third team All Southern Conference last year. He's been with the Wofford Terriers for 2 seasons. Came in, he started 31 games last year. So you're bringing in a veteran 2 guard. He's absolutely a 2. He's not a 1. Although I think he has some sneaky passing ability. But defensively, I think he's a 1-2. You're not going to switch him. Shot 34% from 3 last year, 84% from the line, averaged 14.9 points per game. So all that being said, what are we getting with Max Klezman? Why is he so important to this team? Well, he's important because he has to step immediately into the Brad Davidson role. That's the role he has to fill. He's not filling the Johnny Davis role because nobody can. He needs to step into the veteran, steady presence role. The guy who defenses can't leave because he's going to bang big shots. He's going to make smart plays. He's going to defensively be in the right spots. That's what Klezman's being brought in for. He has to be able to step into that role. And that's a big role. Like, if you remember, we had discussions last year on who the most important player on the team was. And for a long time, outside of Johnny Davis, obviously, but for a long time, I thought Brad Davidson was the second most important player on the team, ahead of Chucky Hepburn and ahead of Tyler Wahl. So to bring Klezman in, he has to fill that role. He has to average double-digit points. He has to. He has to shoot 35, 34% from 3 at a minimum, right? He has to be the space creator, really opening things up for Tyler Wahl, helping Chucky Hepburn have the space he needs to. So it's a big step up in competition for Klezman, coming from Wofford, coming to the Badgers. Great get in the offseason. I don't think it's a ceiling changer for the Badgers, but it's definitely somebody that's going to keep the floor relatively high for Wisconsin. So I have Klezman at 4. Really, really important player for Wisconsin. At 3, I have Tyler Wahl. And again, we get into, listen, I think Tyler Wahl is better than Stephen Crowl. I think a lot of people would agree with that, but he's not more necessarily. This is a tough one. You guys let me know in the comments if you think Wahl should be 2 or 3 or 1. I just go back to post depth again. That's why I have Crowl higher. But Wahl is incredibly important. This team's going nowhere next year if any of the top 3 players get hurt. Maybe that's the way I'll phrase it. I think this is almost its separate tier, right? 3-2-1 with Wahl, Crowl, and Chucky Hepburn. You can rank those in any order you want, but the Badgers aren't going anywhere next year if any one of those players misses significant amounts of time. So I have Wahl at 3. Crazy versatile player. Just ability to guard essentially 1 through 5 at times. I mean, some of the really quick ones give him trouble. Some of the burly 5s give him trouble, obviously. But very few college players have the defensive versatility that Tyler Wahl has. Obviously, his post play is tremendous. But what you saw really happened towards the end of last year when the Badgers couldn't shoot. Defenses adjusted how they played Tyler Wahl. They started really leaving him on the perimeter. They started doubling him and closing down on him in the post. Is he going to be able to shoot? Like, it's so tough with Wahl if he can't shoot. He was 6 of 37 from 3 last year. Now, he did improve his free throw shooting. He went from 54% 2 years ago to 70% last year. That's a big deal, and that's a really good sign. But if you're shooting 21% from 3, if you're that bad, it makes it really difficult, especially on a team that doesn't have a lot of other good shooters. Because what's the play? You dump it into Wahl? Well, an opposing Big Ten coach is just going to double him. Right, you're not gonna let Wahl play one-on-one down the post when nobody on the team can hurt you with shooting. So that's why I have Wahl at 3 and not 2. I think the shooting limits him. It makes it harder to play offense around him, but he's a great player, really, really good college player. And number 2, I have Stephen Crowl. And this is partially because there's no real backup on the roster unless Hodges has made a big jump. So that immediately makes Crowl more important, right? There's other wings on the roster that can give you some of what Tyler Wahl gives you. They can't give you all of it, but there's nobody else on the roster that can give you what Stephen Crowl gives you. That's what makes him so important. You know, a legit 6'11", 7-footer who can shoot the ball. He needs to be more consistent, right? He needs to be a little stronger. If you noticed with Crowl last year, his last 4 or 5, 6 games, he really wore down. Like, he didn't score in more than double digits in the last 6 games of the season. And a lot of those games were 4 points. The last tournament game was 2 points. I mean, he just really seemed to, part of it, I think there was just such a reliance on the starters. The bench didn't give Wisconsin much, even though Vogt was able to help. But Crowl to play a lot of minutes, and there was just a ton of physical basketball in the Big Ten playing, Illinois, Purdue. We talk about those Hess and Coburn. It's a tough toll for a guy like Steven Crowl, who's not the most physically imposing center for an entire season to do that. So I'm hoping this year he comes back a little stronger, a little more resilient, and just a little more consistent. Because if he can just shoot it a little bit better and be a little more consistent, you have an all Big Ten type center. He's really skilled. He can move his feet defensively. He can shoot, he can pass. Really good player. And again, for this Badgers team, without the depth behind him, without a true backup five, his importance is magnified tenfold. You can't lose Crowl. And number one, obviously the only player left is Chucky Hepburn, engine of the team. I think engine of the team offensively and defensively. He's able to set the point defensively. He can guard effectively. I think even some of the shorter threes, he can guard 1 through 3, but definitely 1 and 2s. But just a guy who is inflappable, right? Especially as a freshman. He plays like, I was trying to think of he plays like a 32-year-old point guard for the Knicks or something. Like just somebody who's been in the league for a while. He understands the game so well. He understands pace so well. Hits big shots. We saw that against Purdue. Not afraid to take them. Just the ultimate gamer, and a guy who's going to be in Madison for as long as he's in Madison is going to be one of the best, steadiest, most dependable point guards in all of college basketball. I love Chucky Hepburn. I love his game. I have a few questions just about the ability to be like maybe a lead scorer. I don't know if he's got that in him. He's probably going to need some people around him to score, but he reminds me a lot of, Jordan Taylor, the Badgers point guard from several years ago, who was just a really spectacularly steady point guard. I love Hepburn. Obviously, I don't think the team goes anywhere without those top 3 guys, but that's my list. Let me know if you guys think I'm wrong on somebody, if I'm too high on somebody, too low on somebody. Again, my top tier here is Klezman at 4, Tyler Wahl 3, Crowl at 2, and Chucky Hepburn at 1. I think really that top kind of 7-8 man rotation is pretty set. So it's going to be a really interesting team to follow. Hopefully, I'm hoping the Badgers can still add one more post piece in the transfer portal. But listen, pickings are pretty slim at this point, so I wouldn't necessarily count on it. And I want to thank everybody for listening to Locked On Badgers, making it one of your first listens every day. A bunch more content coming up. We're going to continue giving everybody as much as we can to build this community. Really appreciate it. And until we talk next time, hope you guys have a great night.